Investigators are still searching for clues into who planned and carried out the series of bombings on Tuesday in Mumbai. Death toll at this time stands at 200 people dead and nearly 700 others wounded.
The explosions on Mumbai's train system, timed just minutes apart, were reminiscent of coordinated bombings on commuter rail networks in Madrid and London. And so far, no one has claimed responsibility for the Mumbai attacks. We asked a security expert, Tony Ridley, for his insight into the incident. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Now, the interesting thing about the explosions, they were all timed just a few minutes apart, so it seems like a fairly well-organized and coordinated attack. This would be the work, your guess, your speculation. Terrorists?
At this stage, the implication of terrorists cannot be confirmed until there's a thorough investigation. However, it would indicate that there's a substantial network that's been utilised and certainly resources and technological advancements. However, I would say that the advancement of technology and certainly leveraging from the use of mobile phones and timing devices may mean that there has been a smaller autonomous group, as we've seen in the Madrid and certainly the London bombings in previous occasions as well.
We know that the transport system in India is by far the one of the most highly dense population uses that transport system, so it makes it a very popular target. But besides the fact that it's highly used by civilians there, what other possible reasons could there be for terrorists to target?
Well, one of the objectives of terrorist groups or any of these types of groups seeking attention is to make it newsworthy or make it media attention focused. So therefore the larger demographic that use and engage the services of train networks throughout India would always make it a popular target. Even disruptions are generally reported aside from terrorist attacks. But you also have two key ingredients. You have densely or compact compartments where the enhancement of blast effects can also be utilised, and also the fact you have a vehicle in motion. So not only can you potentially increase your casualty radius by a blast, but also the potential subsequent events of a derailment, for example, could increase the casualty numbers, therefore enhancing the newsworthiness of that particular event.
And I guess security-wise as well, I mean, a public transport system is one of the most accessible. After all, it is meant to be accessible to the general public. So what kind of security measures realistically can be put in place? I mean, we talk about scanners, about stricter security, but with that many people using it every day, won't that cause a lot of congestion?
Certainly. There's a significant amount of challenges for the authorities and commercial security elements to secure essentially a service network. And it similarly applies to the air services as well. However, there are basic procedures which are engaged on a regular basis by the Indian authorities. Enhancing that would just mean that potentially causing travel delays and more thorough in the process, or selectively identifying areas which may be vulnerable. That's access through non-authorised areas, or potentially those that are carrying bulky items that could be explosive devices. Once again, it's important not to create panic, because ultimately that's the objective of these groups.
Okay, so Mumbai is on high alert now, and so are other major cities in India. If you are a traveller there, what's the consequence of such an alert on you?
Certainly, and we're continuing to recommend travel to India. It shouldn't preclude travel. At this stage, travellers should be aware of significant travel delays, certainly in the next 36 to 72 hours, because there'll be a more methodical approach. Certainly areas of Western Mumbai where the investigations continue should be avoided at this stage, largely because of the ongoing investigation and the cordoning off by government forces. So there will be delays, avoiding large public spaces, travel nodes, those sorts of areas which could be subjective or subjected to follow-on attacks. Government locations also should be avoided.
And airport security as well will be tightened. In fact, I think all the entry points into the city will be tightened. So what's this going to mean for people who are sort of flying into India?
Once again, travel delays. People should allocate an extended period of time either for clearing the security processes or clearing immigrations, and have some sort of pre-arranged travel agreements. So a company driver or an escort service to pick them up and take them to their point of business. And they should expect travel delays in and around the airports themselves. And in some cases there may be an overburdening of the telecommunication system, so be prepared that mobile phones may not work as effectively as they may in some areas.
Are there particular areas that people should avoid following this attack that might be particularly vulnerable?
Certainly what we've seen in India in the past is religious locations or areas of religious significance, public transport areas such as trains and so on, government buildings, and large areas where the population can be densely compacted, or there's a certain amount of access afforded given the public space.
If we can just sort of look back now at the bomb blast itself and try and do a bit of our own analysis. Now, we know your backgrounds with special operations and special air services in the Australian Army in the past, and now initial tests are saying that this RDX, a powerful plastic explosive, has been used, and it could mean that the Lashkar-e-Toiba is highly likely to be involved. Now, we know it's premature, maybe misleading to say anything now, but as reports are still going on, how long generally do such lab research or sort of analysis take, and when will we possibly see some concrete results?
Sure. Essentially, this is now a criminal case, so it will take as long as it takes the authorities to establish a credible case. Certainly, any suspects or individuals that are detained as a result of this, the prosecution will need to ensure that they have a credible case and sufficient evidence to lead to a prosecution. So it may take a matter of days to get preliminary results back, but it could take months to have conclusive results.
Right.
So it's difficult to say at this stage, given the scope of the actual event and the other subsequent events, evidence that needs to be security to support that.
Tony, many people are invariably drawing comparisons with attacks elsewhere, like in Madrid and London. The security community, how do they view this and the fact that it seems like terrorist cells and individual cells are actually drawing inspiration from around the world and executing their activities?
Certainly the proliferation of information through the media and also the internet is a concern. Previously, these types of events were limited to large organisations with networks, experience and certainly the capability. What we're seeing now is smaller, more autonomous groups now affecting these types of attacks. It's not necessarily large networks which are very popular throughout the media. It's individuals, and it's not just terrorists. It's those that have some sort of agenda in order to create media awareness or to affect a government change in policy. So yes, it is on the rise. It's becoming almost a franchise throughout the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for coming in this morning to talk to us about this. Tony Ridley, the Asia Pacific Security Director of International SOS.